Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you. Welcome to the channel. And we're in 2 Samuel chapter 19. There are 43 verses in this chapter. Verse 3, it says here, stole them away. Verses, got them by stealth that day. In any case, they were trying to get away out of the city, not being noticed. Verse 4, hid his face versus covered his face. And then there's an addition of O, my son, O, twice. Verse 5, that have delivered you this day. Versus this day have saved. And then it says in verse 6, are nothing in thy sight? Versus have neither regarded. So it's one thing to perceive, King David to perceive that his princes and servants are nothing. That's what they told him. Or specifically, Joab said this. There is nothing in your sight versus you neither regard. So you don't respect us. And then it says regarding if Absalom were alive and all of us dead today, then it would have been right in your sight versus it would have pleased you well. So no, it's not, it wouldn't please him, wouldn't give him pleasure. It just would have been more right in David's eyes, according to Joab. Anyway, that's his opinion. Verse 7, there's an omission of know for thyself. Okay, know for thyself. This thing will indeed be evil to you, beyond all evil, all the evil that has come upon you. Okay, so that is reinforcing that, Joab is reinforcing that David should be aware of this. And then it says evil versus worse, as we just read, verse 8, and all the people reported versus they told to all the people. So it's one thing for the people themselves to report that King David is in the gate. It's another thing altogether for they, whoever they are. I think it's the people. The people are telling the people. So who's reporting? It's the people reporting, but to who? Well, it seems they're reporting to the people. So this actually makes sense in the Masoretic. I'm not going to pick on that because it actually does make sense. Verse 9, from verses 4, delivered us from our enemies. Oh no, it's here at the end. He has fled from the land, from his kingdom. So King David fled from Absalom. He fled away from Absalom versus he fled for Absalom. He fled because of Absalom. Not fleeing away from him, but he left because of Absalom, which it makes sense as well. But it connects everything to from. So look, let's read this again. Let's read this. King David delivered us from all our enemies, and he rescued us from the hand of the Philistines. And now he has fled from the land. So he's fleeing from the land and from his kingdom and from Absalom. So he's fleeing from all these places. He's leaving the land, the kingdom, and Absalom. Versus he saved us out of the hand of the Philistines, or delivered us. He has fled out of the land, came out of the land because of Absalom. So in the Septuagint, doesn't say the reason is because of Absalom. It doesn't give us the reason, actually. It just says he has fled from Absalom. That's obvious. He fled from him, but doesn't say it's because of him. There could be other reasons that he would do this that were not mentioned. Verse 10, an omission of, and the word of all Israel came to the king. Okay. Big difference in verse 11. It actually says here, speak to the elders of Israel versus the elders of Judah. So you're going to see a divide in this chapter, but it's talking about Israel, the elders of Israel. So we can see Israel is not so close to King David as compared to Judah. And we see that at the end of this chapter. There's somewhat of a neglect towards King David in a way, compared to Judah anyway. Verse 17 says here, to Jordan versus over Jordan. So going to Jordan and staying there versus passing over Jordan, skipping it. Verse 18, there's an omission of, and they performed the service of bringing the king over. So that is an important point to mention. This is a service they performed for the king, bringing him over. They escorted him. That's a service to the king. Verse 19, all the iniquity versus did perversely. So yes, it is an iniquity. Gera said to the king, remember not all the iniquity of your servant, versus neither do you remember that which your servant did perversely. So perversely can have many connotations, but iniquity is simply a sin. Mind it. The king should mind it versus take it to heart. So the king should be concerned about it versus you should take it emotionally and take it really personally. Verse 20, before all Israel versus the first. So the difference here, this is actually a more significant difference. Not that it is a significant difference, but it can be. It's talking about all Israel. I should say that your servant has sinned before all Israel, so in the presence of all Israel, versus I have sinned, I am come the first this day. So he's talking about him being first in order, not talking about him presenting himself before Israel. So Gera is saying, I am first. I'm the first to come here, versus I have presented myself. So again, that is significant enough to mention. It makes a difference. Verse 22, lie in wait. You lie in wait against me this day, versus be adversaries. So to be an enemy is one thing, but to lie in wait means you're waiting to ambush. Big difference in 22 as well. It says, today no man in Israel shall be put to death. So King David making this very important statement to Abishai. This is the statement. Today no man in Israel shall be put to death. For I know not if I this day reign over Israel. That's why no one's going to die, because I'm not even sure if I will be ruling over Israel, if they will accept him as the king. What does it say in the Masoretic? It says, shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? So it's a rhetorical question. He's saying, well, there will be death. Yes, there will be death. Won't there be any death? Yeah, there will be. Essentially is what he's answering his own question. Won't there be death today? Yes. Because I know I am king. So that's a big difference. Our first one in this chapter. Okay, this is verse 22. Okay, verse 23. This verse confirms that the Septuagint is correct. So let's read it in the Masoretic first. Therefore the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." So this is a contradiction of verse 22. If we're really being honest, "You shall not die," the king swore to him. However, in the Septuagint, it's perfect. There's no contradiction. The king said to Shimei, "You shall not die," because he says right here, "No man shall be put to death." Unless the translators made an error inserting the question marks, the punctuation, it would read like this: "Shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king?" No, okay, no. Even without the question marks, it still doesn't make sense. The contradiction remains. So I'm going to say Masoretic text contradicts itself here. Verse 24. Omission of son of Saul's son. So it's not just the son of Saul, it's the son of Saul's son. Grandson, essentially, in our modern vernacular. There's an omission of paring his nails. So he did not trim his nails. And it says that he shaved himself. Does that mean he trimmed it, or was he clean shaven? It's hard to say. Versus trimmed his beard. So that's more specific in the Masoretic that he trimmed it. It's a little more vague in the Septuagint, just to be honest. Verse 27, and that's what I like to do that in this channel. I don't want to show a bias just because it's the Septuagint. These things have to be critically examined and not biased, and logically, using the Spirit, the Parakletos, to help and guide into all truth. Verse 27, dealt deceitfully. This is a significant difference. He has dealt deceitfully with your servant versus he has slandered. So it's an attack, a verbal attack, trying to slander his reputation versus dealing deceitfully. Which is worse? They're both pretty bad. But one is saying he deceived me and dealt with me using deception versus slandering my name. So saying evil about me, trying to ruin my reputation. That's against the commandment, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." Verse 32. It says he dwelt in Mahanaim, which means to live there, to abide there, to stay there, versus lay there. So when he slept there. So that is something that needs to be distinguished. Verse 33, we're going to skip over. Verse 37 then. It says here, remain versus turn back again. So let your servant remain. Let me stay here. I will die in my city. So he's in his city. So let me stay here versus I pray you, let me turn back again. So he has to go back to his city. Or does he mean let me remain, so don't let me go with you? I will return to my city. I think that's the implication. Because it doesn't seem like he is in his city, unless he already is in his city. So please let me know, is he in his city or not? Where is his city? Doesn't seem to identify where his city is. Maybe it's Jerusalem? It seems to be Jerusalem. I think Jerusalem is his city. So he's saying, I will not go over to Jordan with you. Okay, so that seems to be the way to understand that. Verse 38, in my sight, I will do to him what is good in my sight. This is King David saying what is good in my judgment. Versus I shall do to him, or I will do to him, that which shall seem good unto you, whatever is good in his sight, in the sight of, what's his name again? Barzillai's site. That's not what is happening. Why would David use his judgment? Is he going to consult him? Is he going to advise him how to treat him? Verse 40, significant difference. He went over with the king versus conducted with the king. So it's one thing to cross over with the king, Hamam, and all the people, versus it's one thing for the people of Judah to conduct him, to guide him, to sort of control him as to where he should go. Verse 43, significant difference. There is an omission of, actually the whole verse is a significant difference. So we're going to look at all the differences put together. They are significantly different altogether when we look at the full verse. So number one, there's an omission of we are older than you. Israel talking to the men of Judah, the men of Israel, I should say, talking to the men of Judah, answering them. And then it says, we have also an interest in David above you. Versus, we have more in David, or more right in David than you. So what does that mean? We have more rights to David, or we have more interest in David? So interest means that in their hearts, there's more in their hearts and their minds. They're more interested in David. They're more invested in David than Judah, which is a great claim to make. To say they have more right in David doesn't make sense, because David is the son. He's of the tribe of Judah. But to say that they're more interested in him, that could be true. To say that they have more in David or more right to David doesn't make sense, because again, he is from Judah. And why have you thus insulted us? Versus, why did you despise us? So they didn't hate them, but they've seemed to have insulted Israel. And then it says here, the speech of the men of Judah, though, was sharper or more fierce than the words of the men of Israel. So that's an interesting distinction, sharper versus fierce. Let's look that up before we close this video. The Hebrew is kasha, and it means to be hard, difficult, severe, hard-pressed, to make hard, to show stubbornness, to be severe. I don't think it shows stubbornness. I think it shows could be to be treating them with more difficulty, just being difficult. It could be said with more harshness or fierceness, or to be severe. That the first definition makes more sense. However, when someone's words are sharper, that has many connotations. It could mean, again, it might hurt more, or they are more seasoned with their words, meaning their words are, although the words being used are not as many in quantity, but the quality of the words are much more efficient. It goes deep into their hearts like a sharp sword. Okay, so that's the imagery I would think of. So that's all for this chapter. It's quite lengthy, as you have heard and seen. I thank you all very much for your time. Until next time, I bid you Shalom Aleichem, Yivarechacha Adonai V'yishmerecha, Assalamu Alaikum, Warahmatullahi Wabarakatuh, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. And Maranatha. You have to manually pause.